Approach, seeker, and ask. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Oracle podcast. I'm your host, Casey Budge, here with my excellent co-Oracle, Blake. Say hi, Blake.
Hi, everybody. I'm Blake. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Blake is a huge Greek mythology nerd. He is one of my good friends, and when I got the idea of doing this podcast, he was the first person who jumped to mind, and so I'm so excited to have him on here. You had never read or been experienced with the Percy Jackson series before this, had you, Blake?
No, I haven't even seen the movies. So we're recording on a Wednesday. This Sunday, I actually read the first 5 chapters before we sat down to do the podcast.
That's awesome, dude. Well, it's cool to have someone who's had a fresh experience in it, as opposed to I am kind of steeped in the Rick Riordan verse. I've read pretty much all of his published works at this point. I've read 30 of his 34 published works or something like that. So it's cool to have someone with a more fresh perspective on it, and to see I've been reading these books since I was in middle school, so it's fun to have someone with a little bit different perspective on it as well.
Yeah, I'm excited as we go through the week to week, episode to episode. It'll be really fun for me to kind of I'm sure I'm going to say a bunch of stuff each episode that is ignorant of what is going to happen. And so it'll be fun to kind of from even me as a fresh reader, just kind of getting a fresh perspective, just getting into it and seeing these events unfold for the first time, kind of live with whoever decides to watch this podcast.
Yeah. And just a quick spoiler warning. So we're recording these episodes in 4 episode chunks. So we're going to stream for about 2 hours roughly. And then we will, I'll go back through and cut up the episode into 4 episodes. And those will be coming to your podcast feeds later in the intervening month. So I'll kind of break them up 1 episode a week from now on. I'm not sure how quickly I'll upload these. These might be backlogged a little bit just because of my work schedule is still a little crazy for the next month or so, but hopefully I'm hoping to have some free time to get those up maybe next week or the week after that. Well, I think we should just go ahead and jump in without any more preamble. But before we do, Blake, have you ever been on a crazy field trip?
I have been on a handful of field trips in my life. Probably the most notable field trip. This is going to be a wicked tangent. I'll keep it concise. We went to, I don't know what grade I was in. I was probably sixth grade maybe. And we went to the fish hatchery in Rapid City, South Dakota. I just remember I was young. You know what? I was probably still in elementary school. I think I was 4th or 5th grade maybe. And so young Blake, preteen Blake, goes to the fish hatchery, and it's literally they're showing us where they keep the fish and how they feed them and all the basic kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden they just take us to this table, and the guy's like, this is how fish reproduction works. And he picks this fish up out of the water and just starts milking it, just spraying these eggs all over this table. And then he grabs another male fish. He's like, and this is how they fertilize it. And he just again is wringing this fish out like a dish rag. He's just fucking squeezing the life out of this thing. Just all this white goo is just spraying out of this fish all over the eggs. And then he just elbow on the table he's clearing crumbs off of his countertop, just scrapes them all into this bucket. And I just remember being 5th grade, 12 years old or whatever, just that was insane.
Awesome.
So that's my wildest field trip story.
Have you heard of had any experience with the this is another tangent, but have you ever heard any or had any experience with the Super Carlin brothers, or any of their videos that they do on YouTube or anything like that?
I don't believe so, actually. I don't think I've heard of them.
So they make a lot of Harry Potter and that sort of content, and they're actually kind of the inspiration for this podcast. That you're a chapter by chapter read through of the Harry Potter books, and they tell a story about a gal who fell into one of the tanks at a fish hatchery when they went on a field trip. And I thought that I was about to have a weird surreal am I living in the Matrix moment.
You're wow, 2 fish hatchery stories, 2 podcasts.
My wildest field trip story was, man, I don't know. We went on a lot of weird field trips because I kind of went to this crunchy granola elementary school, so like we did a lot of weird stuff when I was in elementary school. It was wild. I can't think of the craziest one, but I will keep you posted on that one. Maybe I'll come back next week or next month with a updated craziest field trip story.
Maybe
But
Percy Jackson's experience will jog your memory a bit.
yes, exactly. So let's dive into it. What kind of do you want to do a quick summary run through of the chapter and what all happens to young Percy Jackson?
Gosh, I am fresh. It's going to be Cliff Notes for sure.
That's all right.
So
That's perfect.
Percy lives Percy's currently going to like a boarding school, correct?
Yes, Yancey Academy.
Yes, in Yancey Academy. He goes to his boarding school. They're on said field trip with his kind of like odd friend slash like, because I think he describes him as like kind of lame, like he like walks funny. Grover, right?
Yeah, Grover.
Yeah, his friend Grover, who like walks funny, also kind of like an outcast nerd archetype friend. Percy's obviously not the most popular kid in school. Is it? I guess I'm sorry. I'm butchering the names because I'm still so green on this. But is it Clarissa? Is that the girl that like dislikes him? Which one's the girl that's like kind of poking fun at them on the bus?
So on the bus, it's Nancy Bobbitt.
Nancy, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, and she is, and I quote, throwing peanut butter and ketchup chunks of peanut butter and ketchup sandwich at them. Which I have my book all annotated. You can't really see it that well on here, but in the notes I say peanut butter and ketchup sandwich, gross.
My son is obsessed with Coraline, and there is a part in there where like they're out of groceries, and his mom and Coraline's mom is like, "How about a ketchup and salsa wrap?" And weirdly enough, that sounds more appetizing than peanut butter and ketchup. I'm not sure what's wrong with Nancy's parents.
Well, probably lots, but what's wrong with the people at this school where that like she's at a boarding school? Why are they letting her pack this lunch?
They're at a boarding school. They're like, "Oh, we need to get lunch for the field trip." So like, I don't know, just put ketchup and peanut butter on bread, I guess. Is that what everybody had? Is that what Percy and Grover also had, peanut butter and ketchup sandwiches?
Now I understand why these kids are all a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, having bad time.
Yeah, Grover also has so they're in 6th grade allegedly, and Grover also has the start of a wispy beard on his chin. Just a little point there. It says that he is quote crippled, and he had some kind of muscular disease in his legs. But it also says that you should have seen him run when it was enchilada day in the cafeteria, which is excellent. I too love me a good enchilada.
Are you a green or a red man?
I like me some green chili just because I think it's tastier, honestly. What about you?
I actually just got enchilada stuff at the grocery store today, and I did get green enchilada sauce with.
Excellent. We're in good company. George R. R. Martin, the author of the A Song of Ice and Fire series, really likes those too. So, there you go.
We're in good company indeed.
Yes. So they're kind of talking. I think it's interesting that Percy, so Nancy Bobbitt obviously doesn't like Percy, but she doesn't go about it by teasing him. Like she doesn't provoke him by teasing him or by bullying him. She goes about it by by bullying Grover, which I think is interesting. She knows that like she's not going to get under Percy's skin by bothering him. She's going to get at it by going at his friends, which I think is an interesting theme there. Shows that Percy is deeply loyal to his friends, and that it's an excellent way of characterizing him right out the gate as someone who cares a lot about his friends and is deeply loyal to his friends.
Yeah, and also to like since I'm 4 or 5 chapters in, it also kind of sets Grover up as me as like a first time reader. Grover is kind of like off my radar instantly. Like he's just like a goofy crippled kid with a mustache in 6th grade. Like he doesn't like he doesn't necessarily sound like this book is titled Percy Jackson, not Grover Underwood. So like my brain is like, okay, Grover's just like some kid at school, great. Like Percy seems like a nice kid. He's looking out for this Grover guy.
Yeah, which is awesome. We go through so they go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they're in the Greek and Roman exhibits. And some fun facts about the Metropolitan Museum of Art Greek and Roman exhibit. There is that may or may not become relevant in the near or distant future, so maybe possible spoilers for anyone who has not read the rest of the way into the book, besides these 4 chapters. But there is a bronze of a man and a centaur. There actually is a stele, which is a grave marker that's from Cyprus from the late 5th century, which I think is cool, and it has a big sphinx on the top of it. So
Yeah, and I think when they do kind of the breakdown of the museum, when they're, I don't remember how deep into that first chapter it is, but I feel like there was a cool description of talking about how like there was lots of like orange and black, golden black pottery, and like that's something like I'm watching Hercules growing up, like the animated Disney Hercules, like that's something that's like burned into my brain. Is like the second I see any sort of like pottery that has like that kind of black faced background with like orange or gold like silhouettes on it, is like instantly pulls me in, and I'm like, we're in Greece, baby. Like it's Greece
we're in
time.
Greece, baby. It's time to put on our Hercules branded sandals.
Yeah, exactly. I might get some of my
And
Hercules branded sports drink.
wearing his merchandise. Exactly. Need I say more? I think not. I think our loyal viewers will understand it. Exactly. Man. So there's a part later, it start talking about Mrs. Dodds, who is just a terrible teacher. Not great, as is revealed later. She's terrible. She talks about how she wears a black leather jacket even though she's 50 years old, which is like fine, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think that's like for me like it characterizes her as like someone like I don't know, when I think of a bad teacher, a classic example is one of my US history teachers in high school would have very much been the black jacket wearing type, and in my head it's like a person who like kind of acts like they're in high school even though they're teaching high school, and like is a very like unflattering position for like that woman to be characterized, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It talks about how there was an incident where Percy had to erase workbooks until midnight, which is crazy. But I guess he's at a boarding school, so like he can go right up and go to bed, but it's still crazy. He said to Grover when he got back that he didn't think that Mrs. Dodds was human, and Grover looked at him and said, "You're absolutely right," and that proves to be pretty true at the end of this chapter, I think. But I'm skipping ahead. We get introduced to the story of Kronos, who was the king of the Titans. And he vividly ate his children, who were the gods. And his wife hid Zeus, the king of the gods, away. And then he fed Kronos a mixture of mustard and wine to make him throw up the other gods, and scattered the Titans' remains into the darkest part of the underworld. So yeah, that's fun.
And this is laid out by it's Mr. Brunner, is that right?
Yeah, Mr. Brunner.
Mr. Brunner. He because isn't this like the part where he's like pop quizzing Percy about this
Exactly,
like Kronos
yeah.
myth, and Percy is like kind of forced in a position where he has to sort of like answer these like step-by-step questions, which like for like someone like me or you who's like probably like heard the story of Kronos before, we're like, okay, yeah, business as usual. We're cooking through some Greek stuff. We're setting the tone. But I think it's like kind of a cool like sneaky way for the author to like bring the uninitiated in. Like he does a good job of being like this is like what Greek myths kind of roll like, you know, like this is like almost all Greek myths are kind of characterized in some like bit of tragedy or like horror almost, and so like it's a cool way for him to be like pop quiz, what was Kronos all about, and it's like, oh, this guy cannibalizes children, like and like a in like a way to for like a reader who isn't interested in Greek mythology or hasn't read a Greek myth of any kind to kind of come in and be like, whoa, stakes are high.
Yeah. Sorry, I got a wicked Charlie horse there for a minute. Yeah, so like Greek mythology is crazy. Like there's a lot of incest, there's like murder, there's fratricide, there's patricide, there's an inherent cycle of violence, I think, to be talked about there, where like father kills son, or son kills father to take over his power, and that cycle has continued because of what Mr. Brunner doesn't say here is that the reason that Kronos doesn't trust his children is because he took over the universe from his father Uranus, who is like the god of the sky, basically. Like he is the sky, his entire body is the sky, and he took over the universe from him after he lured him down to earth with the help of his mother Gia, who is the earth goddess, and sliced him up with his own scythe. So this scythe that Kronos has killed multiple, or not killed, but like cut up into 1,000 pieces, multiple deities, and been the instrument in usurping power from multiple different lords of the universe, basically. So it's not just about father and son. It's about this cyclical violence that continues to go on. And I think that is a good example of what the times were like. I mean, you have to look at the city states of ancient Greece to see that, like, fathers were killing sons, sons were killing fathers. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the history back then. And it speaks to their kind of mythology that these are the greatest beings in their mythology, and they're no better than us. We are still created in their image. And so it's kind of cool to see that ring through there.
Yeah, and Greek myth does such a good job of, I don't know, I think that's something that Greek myth does that's very interesting, just from like a reader's perspective or someone just interested in the topic. The gods are petty, they're jealous, they're very, very human. They all have very obvious flaws and character issues. Like, there's no one god that's like, this dude is mighty and pure and perfect. Like, there's nobody like that. They all have this kind of air among them that like makes them a little bit more identifiable or like relatable, I guess. And like, because like Kronos was like straight up like prophesized, like he was told like, hey, someday your son will take your throne, he will become the ruler of the universe. And Kronos like is fearful in that moment. Like, it's a very like normal human emotion to be like, oh, I'm gonna lose all of this awesome stuff I have. I need to, like, I don't care what it costs, I'm gonna stop that from happening.
And that also, another little side tangent, but that echoes the story of Perseus, the hero who Percy Jackson is named after. Perseus, I don't know if he talks about it that in this book, but maybe it's in one of the next couple books. But Percy's mom talks about how he was named after Perseus, who is a real Greek hero from mythology, who is one of the only heroes to have a happy ending, the happiest and that you can get as far as Greek mythology goes. But his father was also given a prophecy that he would be killed by his grandson. And so he took all these steps to try and prevent it, but it ended up not working, and Perseus ended up killing his grandfather anyway. So it's kind of a
nice. And talking about the cyclical nature, Perseus's father is Zeus, like he, next in the chain.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just this whole cycle. And Perseus also goes on to father several children, who some of which are the ancestors of Heracles, or Hercules, as it is. So again, the whole cycle. It's Zeus all the way down. So we'll start.
What's the joke? It's Cheneys and bushes.
Yes, exactly. It's all Cheneys and bushes. It's land breeding if it works. That's what we say in horse breeding, which is kind of a messed up joke, but it's funny anyway. So let's keep talking about the chapter a little bit, because we've already gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's all right. So it talks about how they talk about that for a little while longer. He asks Percy, Mr. Brunner's really hard on Percy. He expects him to be as good or better than everyone else, even though he has dyslexia and ADHD, which I think is just a mark of a good teacher. Like, it just shows that Mr. Brunner really does care about Percy, and he doesn't just let him slip through the cracks. He really tries to do his best for him. We continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mr. Brunner across the board is given like a lot of opportunity to shine, and just be like immediately identifiable as just like a positive force in Percy's life.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Brunner is just shown to be the only teacher who Percy really is able to understand and relate to well, and he also is the only one who seems to take a special interest in Percy. I mean, it says later Percy has been to 6 schools in 6 years, and he is just struggling so immensely, and Mr. Brunner is the only one there who tries to teach him and tries to work with him and encourage him to do his best. So we continue to outside, where a huge storm has been brewing, and Percy talks about how there's a huge storm brewing and that the weather had been weird across New York State since Christmas. And this is kind of, again, for the uninitiated, this may or may not be alluding to something that may or may not happen in the near or future books. So those of us who have read the books kind of can see the foreshadowing here, but I don't want to give too much away, so I'm trying to stay vague about it for now. But that's kind of a hint towards the greater mystery and some of the other things that are going on. Nancy Bobofit is stealing things from a lady's purse, and then Percy and Nancy Bobofit.
Classic Nancy.
I know, classic Nancy. She's described earlier as a kleptomaniac, which I think is hilarious. Mr. Brunner is reading a book, and then Percy and Nancy get into a fight, and Percy hears a wave roaring in his ears, which is significant. And then he doesn't remember touching her. They were standing by a fountain, but he doesn't remember touching her. And then Nancy was sitting on her butt in the fountain. And Mrs. Dodds materializes next to him. And the kids around him are whispering, "Did you see the water? Like it grabbed her." So that's a little bit of a foreshadowing about things to come as well. And Mrs. Dodds leads Percy inside and talks about how he's been giving her trouble, or giving them trouble. And it looks like Grover wants Mr. Brunner to notice that Percy's being led inside by Mrs. Dodds, but Mr. Brunner doesn't seem to be noticing. Mrs. Dodds looks at the frieze of the Greek gods and seems to be growling, so that's of interest. And then she
straight up frothing at the mouth over here. Very normal human behavior.
She be foaming. She's basically a perfectly normal dude. Just a regular guy.
Super regular guy.
Super regular guy. Nothing to see here. And then she appears to turn into a large leather-winged creature and tries to kill her pupil, Percy. She slashes the air, and then Mr. Brunner appears in the door and says, "What ho, Percy!" and throws him his pen, and the pen turns into a bronze sword, which I think is symbolic in a couple of ways. For one, the pen is mightier than the sword is a popular saying, and I think that the author is playing with that kind of theme here, as well as Percy himself being mightier than he might at first appear. And
yeah, for some reason, reading that, like, it really read to me like Mr. Brunner sword is like clicking the pen, and like he's like throwing him the pen, and then like when he like turns it into said sword, like in my head I couldn't get the image of like he's still holding like a pen at the base. Like it's like still a pen, and then there's like the halter on the top, like the break, and then like this massive blade coming out of it, but it's still like maybe like a centimeter wide at the bottom. That is
a funny image, actually. That's really funny. I like that. Percy then manages to vanquish his pre-algebra teacher, and he goes back out, and Nancy Bobofit is standing by the fountain with her ugly friends, and she says, "I hope Mrs. Kerr whipped your butt." And Percy's like, "Who is Mrs. Kerr? I don't know anyone who that is." And she's like, "Our teacher? Don't you know anything?" And Percy talks to Grover. He seems to not know what Percy is talking about. And then he goes up and talks to Mrs. Brunner, or Mr. Brunner, who's back outside. And he says, "Sir, where's Mrs. Dodds?" And Mr. Brunner replies, "Who?" And Percy replies, "The other chaperone, Mrs. Dodds, the pre-algebra teacher." And Mr. Brunner says, "As far as I know, there has never been a Mrs. Dodds at Yancey Academy. Are you feeling all right?" And that is where the chapter ends. So Percy is left wondering, was it all a hallucination? Did I eat some magic mushrooms? I mean, what was going on there?
It's these goddamn ketchup and peanut butter sandwiches.
The ketchup and peanut butter sandwiches have done it to me again. Why do they keep packing us these things? The ketchup went bad in 1996. This is
every field trip. They get the peanut butter that you have to. It's the natural peanut butter you got to stir up, and they don't stir it.
They don't stir it. These rascals.
I got oil and crunchy peanuts with ketchup on sourdough bread.
This isn't even peanut butter. They just chewed up some peanuts and spit it on my bread.
And like the baby bird I am, I eat it for lunch every day.
I eat it for lunch every time. This is terrible.
At least it's May.
At least it's May, man. So this chapter plays with some themes of identity, as Percy being an outsider, some themes of disguise and misunderstanding, which are all prevalent in Greek myth, especially in stories like the Odyssey and that sort of thing. Like not realizing who people are or magical disguises are huge in those kind of stories. And I think that it is cool that this story continues to play with that.
Yeah, Percy Jackson is very obviously written by a person who is like, Greek myth is so cool, I'm going to write 32 books about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and he did, and he has, and most of them are good.
They can't all be winners, but
That's
I've only read 5 chapters of one so far, so I guess we'll see how deep I get.
So some people say we're in the best of it right now. Some people say that it's all downhill from here. I like a lot of the book. Like I don't know. There are a lot of people who talk a lot of smack on some of the later books in the series, but I really I really like the Percy Jackson series. I think that it is super fun to, I don't know, to see Percy grow up and to see him continue in his journey and then to expand outward of that. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. We just finished the first chapter, but it's...
I am surprised. I am really surprised that Percy Jackson did not have the sweeping appeal that Harry Potter did, because like congruently speaking, like it's I guess Percy Jackson technically starts the story, at least in my understanding. I've only read the first 2 Harry Potter books, so I'm not a big Harry Potter guy, I'll be honest, but my understanding, he does start the story quite a bit older than Harry Potter does in his first book. And so maybe that's like the divide, is that like people didn't like start reading these books at like the certain age that like Harry Potter was able to get people in, and then they were able to kind of grow with the story in a sense. And so I wonder if like the kind of later start, so to speak, with Percy Jackson might have been a barrier to that.
Maybe. I do think that part of the issue there is a screen adaptation, like a good screen adaptation, which we're kind of getting now. I like the Percy Jackson TV series that they're doing so far. We'll see how the next chapter is coming out in December, so we'll see how that goes. But the first 2 movies that they made were really bad. Like I don't know. I don't like to bash on other people's work a ton, but I really did not enjoy the movies. As like a Percy Jackson fan, I felt like it was not a good like they weren't very good adaptations, and so it was disappointing because like we had like the perfect Harry Potter adaptations, and then the movies for Percy Jackson just flopped. Like they were not good box office wise, they weren't good fan wise, they weren't good as standalone stories. It just wasn't good all around.
And I might be wrong in assuming this, but is Percy Jackson, is the movie adaptation the same dude from Maze Runner, like the lead actor?
I think he is. Yeah, I think it's the same guy.
Because I don't know how far apart those movies came out. I should probably Google that, because maybe this is like hindsight speaking. But I feel like me as like a casual movie viewer who had never heard anything about Percy Jackson, like by the time Maze Runner came out, like I was like having a hard time like distinguishing these properties from each other. I was like, I don't know, like these have the same dude in them. I don't know, like are these the same stories? Are they not the same stories? And I could see that being like a similarly confusing point for like the uninitiated, like people, because people could go see a Harry Potter movie and like Daniel Radcliffe is in nothing else. Like he's only in Harry Potter for years, and so like I think stuff like
he was
that
in the Equus
can lead
play
to like
where he was naked.
Lots of people really showed out in droves for the Equus play, and probably had similar confusion, I think.
They were like, I thought this was Harry Potter.
Wow, where the fuck is Ron?
Where's Ron? wait, why isn't
How is
Hermione
Ron
naked?
not in this whole play? Straight to jail after that. They're like, why isn't Hermione naked? They're like, arrested.
Arrested. Oh man, jeez. Well, and any final thoughts on the first chapter of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief?
I will say, and this is probably more so a thought for like the first 4 or 5 chapters I read, but pacing wise, really great. I think Richard, is it Riordan? Is that right?
Riordan is how I
Riordan.
Or Riordan. I have no idea how to pronounce his last name.
I don't know. We'll go with Riordan. That sounds cooler.
Yeah.
Or I could just call him Triple RJ. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna call him Triple RJ.
Okay.
Triple RJ has a great like pacing. Like I'm a big, like when I read books, and you know, granted, like Percy Jackson's like significantly below my reading level as far as like, it's a book designed for, I don't know, what would you say, like probably like middle school
basically.
to early high
Yeah.
school, like
Yeah, like middle schooler.
like, so obviously it's like I should be able to like cram through this book pretty well. But like I remember alternatively, like again, I'm not trying to dunk on other people's work. I agree. I'm not trying to speak ill of people who have very prolific franchises. But I remember trying to read the first Hunger Games, and I was like, wow, this book is treating me like a 5-year-old. Like I was like, I can't hang. And I literally like I read like 3 chapters of Hunger Games and just dropped it. I was like, I can't. It's just like it's too low. Like it's too dumb.
Yeah.
In terms of its like presentation, like the way the story is being rolled out and the way they're describing things really felt like they were like, and now I'm going to explain to you what the scene looks like. Are you ready? And I was like, yes, I'm 25 years old. Like I'm fine. Like go ahead and break it to me. Whereas Triple RJ over, but I guess to wrap that sentiment up, Triple RJ doesn't seem to stoop like lower than he thinks his reading level is. Like he seems to kind of assume that like his reader is going to have like a basic level of reading comprehension, which I like. And it just makes it pace really well. So like first chapter, I was kind of like, for me, like if a book doesn't feel right in the first like 3 chapters, I tend to just drop it. And I certainly did not feel that way at all about the first Percy Jackson book. It really just kind of like it was paced well, and it just kind of hit great. Like it gave me all the information I needed while like kind of like giving me a hook to grab onto to like pull me into the next chapter.
Yeah. Just regular RR, not George RR or any other RR. I found that all of the best artists or authors have RR in their name. Tolkien and George R.R. Martin, 2 examples. So RR, just regular RR, does a great job with the pacing, and he sets up the world very concisely. He kind of gives you the broad strokes of it right away and hooks you right in with like this action-packed first chapter, and then he continues to set up the world in the next couple of chapters to get you like properly hooked and like invested in this story and to see where it goes, but also like compelling mysteries and like things to keep you invested in it long term.
Yeah, and hero's journey stories are like very rooted in like Greek mythological myths, like stories. That hero's journey is like the archetype for a lot of Greek heroes, and so telling a hero's journey through the perspective of Percy Jackson with this like Greek set dressing on it, especially for anyone who already likes Greek myths and Greek mythology stuff. I think if you haven't read Percy Jackson and you like Greek myth stuff, like even if you've just played God of War on PS2 a couple of times, you'll probably be pretty down.
Yeah, I think that it's a very accessible series that is, I don't know, really easy to get into, and it scratches my brain in the right way that I really enjoy it. So if you haven't read Percy Jackson and you're looking for an entry point in, listen to this podcast and then go and read the Percy Jackson books, and you can follow along with us as we go through the books, and it'll be like a book club. We'll read a chapter a week basically. So nice easy pace.
Yeah, and for those of you who have already read, you can laugh at me the whole way while I'm being like, oh, and I'm theory crafting and being a silly guy. And the people who haven't read, you can hang out with me on the journey as well, and we'll read like 5 chapters a week and see where we get.
And that is the end of episode 1, our analysis of I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been the Oracle Podcast. Please go check us out on all of our social medias, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, all the others. I'm not on Facebook yet because I hate Facebook. But anyway, we have a Reddit thread. We have a Discord. We have all sorts of stuff. So go check us out. Go find us. All of that should be linked in the episode description when you're seeing this. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Don't forget to leave us a rating because it helps boost the ratings of this so much. Those make a crazy difference. And if you are so inclined, tell your friends who like Percy Jackson about this podcast too, because I'm sure that they will love it as well. And stay tuned for next week's episode.